A year later, what's your assessment? Do you think that it was for the best? Has it improved efficiency?
Yeah, I'm a strong believer that everything does happen for the best, and it was unfortunately a bittersweet moment.
We've seen a lot of family breakups and it can get pretty nasty, but you managed to keep it out of the media glare.
I think as a family there's always been a lot of love. As trustees of the legacy, I think there are many things that we need to do externally and really to bring up India. It's India's moment. The real challenge for us as a company is to be able to provide something which is eco-friendly at the same price point.
When we speak about India Inc. and homegrown conglomerates that have done the country proud, some names are so familiar they come to us instinctively. Godrej being one of them. Founded in 1897, the reins of the Godrej Empire are now in the hands of the fourth generation of the family. When you inherit such a deep-rooted legacy, along with pride also comes the pressure of living up to the name and enhancing it. On this episode of Buzz by the Bay, we're excited to have with us someone from the new generation of leaders from the Godrej family, Executive Director of Godrej Boyce, Nyrika Holkar. Hi Nyrika.
Hi Anushka, thank you for having me here.
Welcome
today.
on the show and thank you for coming. I know what an extremely busy schedule you have. So thank you for coming to our studio. So first off, I don't want to harp on about the settlement, the amicable restructuring that you went through last year, but just for context, for the audience, last year Godrej went through a restructuring after 127 years. And you are the executive director of Godrej Boyce, and the other side is the listed companies. Just to recap,
Yes.
a year later, what's your assessment? Do you think that it was for the best? Has it improved efficiency?
Yeah, I'm a strong believer that everything does happen for the best, and it was unfortunately a bittersweet moment, but I think that overall it's helped. I think both sides focus more on building than breaking, and I think that's important in terms of also where India is today, and everything that both sides have to do to build up the Godrej brand, and I think there we continue to work together, and I think even as a family, our relations, luckily after a time of it being tumultuous, is also a time for reconciliation and healing. So I think that's important.
So time for reconciliation and healing. So relations in a sense are good. Yes. Between the two sides, and you work together for the Godrej brand, and I like what you said, instead of breaking you focus on building. You managed to keep, before we move on to the verticals you look after, you managed to keep the restructuring, as you all call it. Some people call it breaking up Godrej style, with dignity, not in the public glare. Because we've seen a lot of family breakups and it can get pretty nasty, but you managed to keep it out of the media glare and managed to keep it amicable in the public eye. So how did you achieve that?
I think as a family there's always been a lot of love, and yes, everybody has disagreements. You can't see eye to eye on everything, but I think finally family bonds, and also I think the legacy of what the brand and the organization has stood for is larger than any of us, and I think it's important for us always to remember that, and to remember that we are trustees of a legacy, and it's important for us to uphold that.
Yeah, trustees of a legacy, and I was going to come to that. Also, there is there's a non-compete clause on certain areas, right? Is that in real estate or no?
It's in many different areas, and I think because both sides have been in very different businesses, industries, sectors, I think from that perspective, we operate quite independently, but there is a non-compete on the businesses that each of us are in for a period of 6 years, that the other side cannot enter the business with the Godrej brand in perpetuity, and can enter the business but under another brand after 6 years.
Okay, so after 6 years it can, but with another brand. So then you can't leverage that Godrej name.
Yes.
Okay, that's interesting. We spoke about legacy. The brand, Godrej brand, like I said, it's one of those names that instinctively comes to mind. You know, when you talk about India Inc. and the brands that have really built India Inc. It's synonymous with trust, quality. The Godrej Steel Almira became part of families, you know, it became like a family member. Your mother is from the Godrej family. How did it feel growing up belonging to this legacy?
So growing up, I think being a family business, I think business was always brought to the table. We've always discussed it. We always spent weekends together. So my grandparents were very involved, and so I think we always grew up with the context of the company very much at the forefront. And I think that it's always been a very important part of our lives, and I think also as a family business, somewhere there's very little separation between family and business.
Okay.
And I think that's a good thing, because I think it's important to grow up in the ethos. Some things like the values and the approach to business, I think that is something which has endured over generations, and I think that that's something which is important to pass down.
Yeah. So when you talk about these values, which of these are the most important to you?
So I think integrity is extremely important. I think another important value is environmental stewardship, and that is something that has been there since inception, and also takes us back to the importance of industry coexisting with nature. Today, as we see, especially in urban context, somehow nature always gets characterized as a means to an end, as opposed to, you know, being something which is valued in itself. And I think that that's something that my forefathers, grandparents, my uncle, my mother have always instilled in us, the importance that it doesn't need to be a zero-sum game, and that, you know, we can always ensure that nature coexists with industry. And so even if you see any of our campuses pan-India, that definitely is a striking element and something important. And also I think for mental health, for you know, a sense of well-being, I always feel happy to come to office in the morning, because it's a beautiful place to be in.
Vikhroli.
Yes.
You have over 3,000 acres over there, right? And nature, again, there's a lot of mangroves in that particular area. And I'm glad you said this, stewardship of nature and coexisting with nature. And you said it doesn't have to be a zero-sum game, which is so important to understand right now. I mean, everybody talks about sustainability. Some use the word very loosely. Just a couple of questions before we get to that element. You know, when you come from such a deep-rooted legacy, there's great pride, of course, but there's also pressure to live up to that name. Does that sometimes seem overwhelming? You are now the 4th generation in this business.
Yes, I think that, you know, looking back on our history, I think it's definitely a history that I think we can all say we are very proud of. Because it started with the whole independence movement, and my grandparents were very involved in the freedom movement, and the idea that political freedom is very closely intertwined with economic freedom. And their objective was always to make India economically independent and create a manufacturing base in India. And I think that when we look back and we see, the first lock, the first safe, the first refrigerator, the first forklift and typewriter, they were all firsts for India. And importantly, they helped not only to create jobs, but to create a pride in our own ability to make things. Yes. And I think that today is even more important as we strive to become Viksit Bharat. I think the whole small and medium enterprises which form the backbone of supply chains in India really have to be brought up. And I think that established industries like ours really have a responsibility to bring up the rest of really the backbone of India. And I think whether it's digital enablement, whether it's looking at green clusters, I think that's really today where where the inflection point will be. And I think if we are able to bring up the MSME supply chain and industry, I think really then we will be a reckoning force with China, because today, as even foreign MNCs and people are looking for alternatives to China, also to strengthen their own supply chains, India becomes a very important alternative. As trustees of the legacy, I think there are many things that we need to do externally and really to bring up India. It's India's moment.
It's not just about raising your brand and raising your company, it's about bringing everybody else along with you. In a sense, that's true patriotism also, and that was the aim when Godrej was founded in 1897. It was to make India economically independent, and it's great that you're carrying that legacy on. Sometimes it's not easy because one has to evolve with the times and yet keep a certain, keep certain traditions and certain values intact. But times change, consumers change.
Absolutely. And we're seeing that today, that we're really at an inflection point post-COVID where everything changed in terms of how people consume information, how digital has become such a big part of everybody's life, how everybody's shopping journey at least starts with from a digital perspective, where you can see, you can evaluate, you can look at different brands, you can see the features, the price points. I think today customers are far more informed and perceptive than they were in the past. Today in India, because we have such a young demographic and there is so much ease with digital technology, that even adoption is high in India. And even if one has to look at the UPI payments and how the adoption is in India compared to even Europe or the US, it's I would say Asia has a much stronger adoption pattern. And I think that that's both a challenge as well as an opportunity.
Tell us a little bit about the three clusters, that your side of the family handles. It's a consumer-facing cluster, which is of course your locks and furniture and cupboards and all that. Your nation-first cluster, very interesting, aerospace and precision engineering. Then you have real estate. Which are you the most passionate about? And just a little bit on these three clusters.
Yeah, so I think historically we have been in the consumer-facing businesses. So locks was our first business, and so I think there is a lot of pride also from a market leadership perspective. I think there is we have a good starting point, and I think today understanding our customers better and trying to really, in these kind of product businesses, really create something interesting, differentiated, and that's the challenge today. Because by revenues, the consumer-facing cluster would be larger. But if one has to look at today where the government's priorities are, where investments are going, I think the Nation First cluster is poised for very strong growth. And I think there's also a lot of opportunity in terms of R&D, in terms of design, for us to really be doing much more. A great focus is being put on ensuring that we're really scaling up in terms of our own design abilities, and significant investments have been made in our facilities today. We are building a new campus in Khalapur, and we want that to really be
this is your Nation First cluster?
Yes,
yeah,
that would
Khalapur.
be aerospace and precision engineering. And then in Dahej in Gujarat, we've also set up a new factory looking at process equipment, which is mostly for export.
Okay.
And so I think these three clusters really are poised for very strong growth if we are able to really get these fundamentals in place.
That's great. So this aerospace, this vertical of yours, aerospace in the Nation First cluster, you manufacture the engines also for ISRO?
We do engines, we do the thrusters. We do other sub-assemblies and other complex systems.
Absolutely. Anyway, moving away from that and to, other issues like sustainability, but I just wanted to add an anecdote that I was reading, that your locks, the Godrej locks and the Godrej safes, when in 1944 the Bombay dock explosion happened, the Godrej safes were among the few items that survived the devastating blast with the contents intact. I'm sure these are stories that you're all very familiar with, but that's really interesting. That just shows that your products are really sturdy and have always been since then. Any other anecdote you want to share with us?
I think quality has always been a very important, part of our approach, and I think we've always prioritized quality. And I think also in terms of R&D, because even the whole sort of fireproof safes, even the cupboards for that matter, I think has been premised on a strong backbone of R&D. And even at the time when we were given the first global patent for the springless lock, it was the first mechanism which had been invented by my great uncle Ardeshir. And I think to be able to get a global patent at that time was remarkable, and really speaks to his ability to charge up the team, also his vision and foresight, and also the importance of creating differentiated products that didn't exist in the market. So finding white spaces and creating. And
coming to your consumer-facing cluster, what are the main changes you have introduced to keep abreast with an evolving market? Any particular segment that you are personally very involved with?
Yes. So I'm currently involved with the turnaround of our furniture retail business, Interior. And I think that really provides a great opportunity in India for us to kind of relook at the whole customer value proposition, and to look at how do we more deeply integrate consumer insights, understanding how people actually use furniture in their homes, how do they use the spaces in their homes, and because I think homes, offices, also schools where we are present today, I think are places where we spend so much of our time, and those really have to be a reflection of whether it's at work, how productive we are, how comfortable we are, and in the home, how it becomes a place for us to really come together, to share special moments, even to kind of take a moment to sort of restore ourselves, because homes are always that sanctuary and space that we can always go back to after a difficult day at work. How do you really create multi-purpose furniture that can ensure that your spaces can be used for many different purposes? Yes. Tastes are also particular. If you go across India, different states, maybe it's a bit of a generalization, but there are sensibilities and tastes which do differ as you move from the north to the south and east to the west. As an Indian brand, our ability to resonate and to be a brand of choice today is again the challenge and the opportunity, because I think that with the furniture industry, so much is imported. And sometimes it's also cheaper to import, even with the duties. Yeah. But we have so much in India, so why can't we leverage what we have and create something which is Indian, end to end? And I think that's really what excites me. And working with our team, very passionate individuals who really want to create something special. And I think that's a real pleasure to be working with them today.
That's amazing, and you sound very passionate when you talk about this. And like you said, it's not easy because India is so diverse. Tastes differ, not only from north to south, maybe from South Bombay to North Bombay, they differ, you know. Yes. And to incorporate all that, and like you said, why do we have to import? As it is, importing can be difficult. We have what it takes to build something end to end. Coming to sustainability, we spoke about it in the beginning, but little more about your sustainable products. I know refrigerators, ACs, they don't have materials that lead to ozone depletion, and if you could just elaborate a bit on your...
Yeah. So I think climate change, whether you accept it or not, is a reality. And I think even as we can experience outside, it's probably going to be one of the hottest summers. And today, even as we look at appliances and we look at the type of energy intensiveness that appliances have, and also contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. So I think it's very important for us as an organization, as well as looking at India's inflection point, because today with consumption, with also development and progress, comes adoption of more appliances. And today, if we look at the heat around us, appliances like ACs, etc., are no longer a discretionary category. They're really more of a productivity tool today, because with the heat you really can't survive. Yeah. And so it's important for us when we're looking at the development which is happening in the city, and also the fact that the appliance industry will grow exponentially. How do we ensure that we are putting out products that have the least energy as well as negative impact on the planet? 5-star ACs would be the most energy efficient. But today, the market is mostly concentrated around 3-star air conditioners because of price. And so I think the price points today really are an inhibiting factor. And even if you look, like in our research that we've done amongst consumers as well as institutional customers, because ESG is such a big priority, institutional customers would opt for ESG, would look at the ESG credentials of a company.
The energy saving,
Whereas on the retail side, people are looking at features and people are looking at price points. And Today in the market, there's not a willingness to pay for something just because it's, eco-sensitive.
Yeah.
I think the real challenge for us as a company is to be able to provide something which is eco-friendly at the same price point. And I think that is really the challenge.
Have you managed that though?
We haven't managed that.
But you're doing R&D on that.
Yes, I think that that's very important for us
Yeah.
to be able to do, because that's the only way we can really move the market. But I think it's not only something that private industry can do alone. I think we do need to have a stronger partnership with government.
Awareness is a big part of it, right? Making people aware that look at the detrimental impact that certain appliances, certain practices are happening on the environment, and it's easier said than done, right? To expect people to pay, especially in a country like India. I mean, we can't expect people to pay that much more. Most people cannot afford to pay that much more for an appliance, a refrigerator, or an air conditioner that they really need, because that appliance is eco-sensitive.
So we have particular chemicals
Yeah.
like chlorofluorocarbons,
Yeah.
which we don't have. Our air conditioners also, from the efficiency of operation of the air conditioner, are more energy efficient. But I think today energy tables and energy norms are across, I mean, all players in the industry have to adhere to those norms.
Yeah.
So I think it's a question of what more can we do. And we did participate in a Rocky Mountain, the Rocky Mountain Institute was looking at cooling technologies and which cooling technologies can have the least impact on the environment, and we were the runner-up in the prize for the cooling technology, and I think one of the only Indian companies.
Yeah, okay, that's great that you're focusing on this, and your campus also must be quite sort of eco-friendly, right, in Vikhroli?
Yes, and I think the wonderful thing about our campus in Vikhroli is really the biodiversity. The wonderful both flora and fauna that we have on campus is incredible, and is really a gift today. And I think it also reiterates the importance of looking to preserve, some of these very important species. And of course, there are competing demands in an urban context. Of course, electricity, power is very important for us to have as a country. But I think we need to be able to have more nuanced conversations on the trade-offs.
Yes.
Because today it's easy to cut down trees, and it's easy to say we're going to replant. But I think what we miss in this whole process is that actually old trees store much more carbon than a new sapling.
Of course.
And so actually the carbon sequestration and ability of an old tree, and especially mangroves. Mangroves sequester 5 times more carbon than a terrestrial forest. I think as climate change and climate tragedies intensify, I think we have to really look more seriously at how can we use nature as a natural barrier to protect us, and how can we also put a biophysical and rupee value to the services that some of these natural cover provide.
And it's really great that you're speaking like this, for a young corporate leader to talk like this, because it's so easy to exploit the environment for profit. But you're talking about putting a rupee value to all these things, and also to have a more nuanced discussion and about the natural barrier that nature provides. All this is extremely important, and your campus itself has so much biodiversity. It's great that you're preserving that. This conversation is very, very important. A little bit about your personal philosophy. I want to know a little bit about, are you spiritual or not? You come from a very multicultural background. Your mother is Zoroastrian, Parsi, as the Godrejes are. one of the leading families in the Parsi community. Father is a Hindu. You're married into the Holkar family, descendants of the legendary Ahilyabai Holkar, who was a famous queen of Indore from the Marathas. So I mean, it is what an amazing legacy to belong to. Are you drawn to any particular religious or spiritual teaching?
So we were brought up, my sister and I were brought up Zoroastrian.
Okay.
And that still is a guiding philosophy for me. I think it's a very practical approach, and good thoughts, good words, good deeds.
Yes.
Of which probably the good thoughts are the hardest to do.
So true.
But my father was actually Christian.
Oh,
and
Christian.
Is Christian. And so we were also, we went to church, and I think that the family that I married into, Yashwant's family, are Hindu. So I think we've been able to really have a lovely mix of faiths, traditions, and I think my parents always brought us up to respect all religions and celebrate all festivals. So we always celebrated everything. And I think similarly with our children, Yashwant and I believe in the importance of exposing them to different ways of thinking, different traditions, rituals, and I think that for me personally, I am spiritual. I don't necessarily subscribe to institutionalized religions, but I do believe strongly in the faith that I have, and I think that it's important also for our children to understand their history, to understand where they've come from, and one can only contribute if one has an understanding of one's roots. Our children, especially our daughter, she loves all rituals.
Really? She's 7.
She's 7, but she, when we are in Maheshwar, she will go into the temple, she'll sit on her own, she'll chant. We have our prayers at home, which she says every night.
The Parsi prayers.
The Parsi prayers. So both our children know the prayers, and we say them because I personally find them very powerful. And I think that and even the texts, like she loves reading all of the religious texts and the stories and the
like
mythology.
The Ramayana and the Mahabharata and those? Okay.
And she knows everybody's name and relations.
That's fantastic. No, that's so important, I think, to know about your culture. And they're truly multicultural. And I apologize, I thought your father was Hindu and I didn't realize he's Christian, because your maiden surname is Krishna.
Yes.
Right? So I just assumed.
He was Hindu and he converted.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting.
His father
converted. Well, apologies for that mistake.
No.
I was not aware. But it's truly multicultural. It's truly multicultural. And what a legacy. It's a great legacy to have. And I'm a great fan of Ahilyabai Holkar also, what a reformist she was.
Yes. And this is her 300th celebration of her birth anniversary on the 31st of May. So it's
you will be going to Maheshwar for that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
How amazing. Lastly, Nyrika, you are a woman leader now. How does it feel to be amongst this new generation of India Inc.'s powerful leaders? And that too, you are a woman. And I'm sure you've done a lot for women in your company. But generally, how do you feel? Till last year, you kept a more low profile. Now, even if you try to keep a low profile, I suppose it's hard, right? Because
no, I wouldn't look at it like that, and I wouldn't also look at it as power. I would really look at it as you know, a new generation that also needs to work together. I think that's also important in India because I think individual companies don't win. I think it's ecosystems that really win. And how do we create an ecosystem in India that you know, can be superlative? And I think it would require the effort across the board. And I think it's an exciting opportunity to build. And also, as we look at becoming Viksit Bharat, it's about also looking at how do we build a paradigm that's not a copy-paste of the West, because we know all of the problems of industrialization and all of the kind of fallout that came as a result of it. And so why can't we use a different approach? Okay. And why can't we also use our traditional knowledge, our you know, our very rich heritage, and as a culture, we are one of the oldest cultures in the world. So you know, looking back to look forward, I think is important for us, and also to create you know, as we see climate change, we see the different kind of paradigms in the world, why can't we build a better prototype for development? And I think we can. I think we have the brain power, we have the ability, and we also have the foundation. And it's about really kind of being creative, pushing the needle and thinking outside the box to really do something that doesn't need to be a copy of what's happened before.
Okay, that's great. We can't copy paste from the West, can't copy what's happened before. Of course, forge a new path forward. Lastly, I mean, how do you personally balance work and life? You have 2 small children. How do you balance, how do you get a work-life balance?
I don't think there is such a thing as a balance. I think it's really looking at priorities at that point of time. Okay. I would say I'm very bad at balance. And as a working mother, it is difficult, because I think you do have many things that you have to do in a day, and you don't always, I think you end up kind of failing at everything when you try to balance. So I think it needs to be, at least for me, the way it is today is unbalanced but prioritized.
I like that. That's a wonderful philosophy. Rather than say you have to work 70 hours or 90 hours a week, you know, it's like kind of, you know, you play it by ear, unbalanced but prioritize what needs to be prioritized. That's a great way of looking at it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful talking to you.
And to you. Thank you.